Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Zach, and as always, I'm your host here on the Divine Dividend. Today, we're talking Dividend Aristocrats. So, companies that have been around for decades, never missed a dividend payment, and have continued to grow their dividend year after year. So, we'll take a look at some good ones that you might want to look into, but also different ways you can structure your long term portfolio. So, sit back, relax, and let's get it. All right, so these are just three things that I want to talk about, things you might want to keep in mind while you're creating your long-term dividend portfolio. So the first thing we're going to start with is diversifying. Now, no matter what kind of portfolio you have, you always want to be diverse. Don't ever put all your eggs in one basket. This is because for the fact that if that one stock goes down or that one sector that you're in goes down, then your whole portfolio is going to suffer. So if you have stocks from different sectors, so some in technology, some in agriculture, some in consumer business, some in oil and gas, some in real estate, that way, just in case one sector goes down, the other sectors will keep you up and you won't notice your losses so much. So that's the first half. The second half is diversifying with quality stocks. So since we're talking dividend portfolio, I'm going to talk about the Dividend Aristocrats. All right. So Investopedia defines us a dividend aristocrat. So the key takeaway is basically it's a company that's increased its dividend for at least 25 straight years. So whether they pay monthly, whether they pay quarterly, doesn't matter. They have not missed a dividend payment, and their dividend has gotten bigger every year for the last 25 years straight. These companies tend to be large because obviously they've been around for at least 25 years, so they've had time to grow, and they're largely recession proof. Now, this is the most important thing we want to be looking at right now. What are we on the verge of? Potentially a recession. On average, they happen every 8 to 10 years, and the last one happened in 2008, like right before the housing crisis, and we're in 2020, so it's 12 years. Whether COVID does or doesn't spark this, it's just one of those things that kind of needs to happen every 8 to 10 years on average. And so because it's about to happen, you want to start changing your portfolio now so that when the time does come, you're already in good shape. And the best way to do that would be by putting it in some dividend aristocrats. So if we're diversifying, we want to have some of ours be large cap stocks, some of ours be mid cap, and some of them be small cap. This is to get a little bit of risk in your portfolio. Now, how do you determine how much risk you need in your portfolio? Well, this is basically kind of what stage in life are you at, I would say. If you're like 65 and about to retire, you don't need a ton of risk in your portfolio. But if you're anywhere under the age of 25, maybe even 30, I would say having a decent amount of risk is good because you're still young, you have plenty of time to make up any sort of losses, and you're maximizing your gains while you can. All right, number two, set aside a little bit of money each month to put into your dividend portfolio, investing in general. So for example, I invest in Coinbase and I invest in Robinhood, okay? I like stocks and crypto. So if I do 40 bucks into crypto, 40 bucks into stocks, and that's every 2 weeks. So I'm putting in $80 every 2 weeks. Well, there's 4 weeks in a month, right? So I'm doing that twice. I'm putting in 160 bucks a month. And then there's 12 months out the year. That means I'm putting in personally out of my paycheck $1,920 a year. So that's really not that bad. $80 every 2 weeks, that's like not going out to dinner, twice in those 2 weeks. Maybe I spend 40 bucks. I don't know. That sounds about right. But $1,920 every year, that's going up, not including the stock value itself going up or any of the dividends we're getting. So check this out real quick. I know this is probably a lot, but this is my dividend portfolio tracker, okay? And you can just see over here the stocks that I'm in, but then also how much payment I'm getting per month and then what it totals up. But as you can see, right now I'm getting $102.22 a year out of my portfolio. And at this current rate of dividend payout to equity, which is like 7 or 8%, I would need $15,000 of these stocks in order for me to make $1,000 a year just in dividends. Okay. So, it's going to take me probably a couple years unless I decide to put a big chunk of capital in there. But if you have a $15,000 portfolio, okay, and then you stick to the plan, and then you put in $1,920, so $80 every 2 weeks, okay? If I add in me making this extra $1,000 a year from dividends, now I'm going from this 15,000 plus 3,000. I went from 15,000 to 18,000 in 1 year just by putting in $80 every 2 weeks. Okay, your dividends will work for you, and that's why you want to get into these companies, these Dividend Aristocrats. They've already made it through all these other recessions. They're gonna have your back this whole time. All right, the last thing we need to do is reinvest the dividends that we make. So have you ever heard of the DRIP? DRIP, Dividend Reinvestment Plan. So it depends on the brokerage you have, okay? It might just be an automatic setting. It might be something you have to go in there and click. But what it does is every month or every quarter when you receive your dividend payment, it might just put it back into the cash you have in that portfolio, or there's a setting on there you can go find, and it'll automatically just buy a little bit of that share. It's called a fractional share. So for AbiVi, for example, if I'm getting $3 a quarter and it's a $90 share, that's getting me like 0.033 of a share. Okay, well, I'm getting 0.033 of the next dividend as well. So every quarter, it's actually going to get more and more and more and more. It's kind of compounding on top of itself. But just know that those fractional shares will get you fractional payments of the dividend. All right, so what you can do, this is actually streetinsider.com. Street Insider and MarketBeat have all the dividend information you could ever need. But what they do is they tell you past dividends, okay? So not only does it tell you the actual price of AbiVi currently, how much you're making per year from each share, but also there's this important date on here called the declaration date. So what this date is saying is that if you owned a share of AbiVi on this day, so February 20th, if you owned it at that time that they declared it, that's how you know you're going to get your dividend. All right, and it paid out May 15th. So if these are your long-term holds and you have them for, you could hold them for 5 years, 10 years, you could hold them for the rest of your life, however long you want to hold it. Then you don't have to worry about this date exactly. But it's one of those things where if you actually want to swing trade or you want to be in and out, whatever the case is, just go ahead and look at past declaration dates. And if you do want this dividend, then I would just make sure you have it before that date. So they're like, okay, cool, February 20th, anyone had stock on this day is going to go ahead and receive the dividend. All right, that's about it, guys. I strongly advise you go in and Google and just check out S&P 500 Dividend Aristocrats. It'll give you guys a little bit more about their history and the different qualifications there are. There are different lists out there that will say these guys need to have been around for longer or shorter, or there's just different qualifications. But go ahead, I'll take a look and I'll show you different years that they got added to the list. And some of them will show you like how long it's actually been on the list for. I think the longest one I've seen is it's been on the list for 64 years. Okay, but this is a huge list. Go in, every single one, every company has its own story. But a lot of them are very proud of getting this name, Dividend Aristocrat. It's like very prestigious. So go ahead, take a look. If you guys have any questions or if you guys have different stocks that I talk about, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.